I've done a few Pokemon playthrough challenges in my day, and they tend to be really time-consuming, which is why I don't usually add shiny hunting on top of everything that I already need to do. But hey, it's not every day you get to put shiny Ho-Oh in the thumbnail of your video, so what the heck? Let's see if I can beat Pokemon HeartGold with only full odds shiny Pokemon. The game starts in Newbark Town as always, but before I can progress into the tall grass, I need to claim my shiny starter from Professor Elm. In Generation 4, the shiny odds are 1 in 8,192, so I need to choose who my starter is going to be before I start shiny hunting it. I decide on Totodile since it's objectively the best starter for this game and has a pretty great shiny in my opinion. Starting the hunt, I knew it would be a long time before I saw any Pokemon sparkle, but I just have to stick with it until... Oh, come on, you've gotta be kidding me. The wrong starter is shiny on my first attempt? Oh wait, the other two starters are shiny too. Huh, well that's lucky, I guess. I of course pick the shiny Totodile, name him Beryl, and talk to this very suspicious character before I finally leave my hometown to run an errand for Professor Elm. He needs me to run to Mr. Pokemon's house to pick up a rare item. When I get there, Mr. Pokemon gives me this mystery egg that won't have any plot relevance later, and I get to meet the world-famous Professor Oak. Sir, I'm a huge fan of your work. Will you sign my Pokedex? Sadly, our meet and greet is cut short when the less cool professor tells me that he got robbed at gunpoint, forcing me to rush back to Newbark Town to save him. On the way back, I meet that suspicious character again and find the stolen Pokemon when he challenges me to a battle. I see you took the Cyndaquil. Good choice.
For me!
When I return to Newbark Town, I'm almost framed for Grand Theft Cyndaquil, but luckily Lyra has my back and I'm able to identify the real criminal to the cops. Officer, I swear to you, his name was Please Subscribe. I saw that on his actual ID. Now that jail time is no longer on my 5-year plan, I leave my hometown once again to find Lyra waiting to teach me how to catch a Pokemon. Lyra, thank you for bailing me out, but I already know how to catch a Oh my god, that's another shiny. Lyra, you just found a...
Wait a minute!
Something feels off here, but I can't quite put my finger on it. I'm sure it's nothing. Now that I'm finally free from all the tutorials, I can make my way to Violet City and the route just below to start my second shiny hunt. I want a Mareep. Not only is its cotton candy shiny just absolutely delicious, but Ampharos is one of my favorite electric types of all time, and it's so good for a Johto playthrough that they literally had to remove it from Crystal. Luckily, this shiny hunt didn't go on for too long. It did take a few minutes to actually find the Mareep, but the first one I found was shiny, so that makes up for it. I caught her without a hitch and named her Opal. Now that I have an electric type on the team, Faulkner's gym should be easy. But first, I have to climb the Sprout Tower, which is more terrifying than usual since neither of my Pokemon are good against grass, and every single trainer in the tower uses a shiny Bellsprout with a Vine Whip. Stupid trainers showing off the Pokemon that I have to take time to hunt for. Well, I want easy shinies. Luckily, Beryl learned Bite while fighting his way through the Gauntlet of Flowers, which gave him the ability to knock out most of them in one attack. When I got to the top of the tower, I found that my rival had already beaten the Elder, so I tried my hand at the fight too and won with ease. After the battle, he gave me the TM for Flash, which I really didn't care about. But it does now mean that the first gym is open for business. Faulkner is a flying type specialist, so Opal should be able to handle his whole team. She starts the battle off by OHKOing Faulkner's Pidgey with a single Thundershock, but his ace Pidgeotto won't go down quite so easily. We trade a few tackles and some Thundershocks until Pidgeotto's HP gets low enough for it to use Roost on the next turn. And usually it would be able to outspeed Opal, but it procced Static. Now that Opal can outspeed the Pidgeot, it's able to KO the bird with one more Thundershock on the next turn. Good job, Opal. You beat Faulkner all by yourself. After beating the gym, Professor Elm calls me and insists that I take care of the mystery egg that Mr. Pokemon gave him. I tried to decline since I'm not ready to be a father yet, but he wouldn't take no for an answer, so I ended up getting the egg anyway. This is why I like Professor Oak better. Excuse me, ma'am, do you want this egg? No? Well, then I'm just gonna put it in the box because it has 0 plot relevance. Something that does have plot relevance, though, is the fact that Opal evolves into a Flaffy on the way to Azalea Town. And I guess that Team Rocket is back. Really, dude? You started off as an evil crime syndicate that steals Pokemon and seeks world domination, but now that your big daddy's gone off to get milk, you're throwing a temper tantrum and taking your anger out on the local Slowpoke population? Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Well, at least their actions are evil enough that Kurt the Pokeball maker needs me to help him drive Team Rocket out of town. So we hop down the Slowpoke well and Kurt immediately breaks his back. Well, I guess I'm going at it alone. I fight my way through the Team Rocket grunts until I find Executive Proton, who I handily defeat by just having Beryl spam bite. Wait, Kurt? Didn't you break your back? How are you here right now? How the hell do you just walk off a broken spine? Ignoring Kurt's Wolverine-level healing factor, Beryl evolves into Croconaw shortly after beating Proton, and this is just in the nick of time, since Please Subscribe challenges me to a battle. My rival starts with a Ghastly, who the newly evolved Beryl can easily take out with a super effective bite. Zubat is up next, so I switch into Opal. She gets confused by a Supersonic, but is luckily able to land a Thundershock on the following turn while Zubat procs Static. I love Static. After a few turns of hacks, Opal is able to KO the Zubat with a Thundershock, leaving only Quilava. I swap Beryl back in as the Firestarter tries to lower his accuracy with Smokescreen, but it's all in vain since Beryl hits 3 Water Guns and is able to win the battle. Next up is the Bug Gym. Bugsy's Scyther can be a bit of an issue for low-level teams in this game, especially with U-Turn, but I accidentally overleveled my squad because I forgot the gym's ace is only level 17. Oops. My bad. The battle starts with Scyther immediately using U-Turn to get away from Opal because Bugsy knows she can easily OHKO his ace. But before Scyther even gets a chance to switch out, Static activates, paralyzing it before Bugsy can bring in Metapod. I love Static! The Metapod takes a big hit from Opal as it switches in, and goes down a few turns later since Bugsy decides to waste a potion. Metapod fainting prompted the return of Scyther, and because it is now paralyzed, Opal is able to outspeed and knock it out with a crit Thundershock. I honestly don't know if the crit mattered there, but way to go, Opal! Kakuna is Bugsy's very last Pokemon, but all it can do is Poison Sting, so it goes down and Opal wins the battle. Now that the gym battle is over, I need to head into Ilex Forest for my next 2 team members. Not because these 2 Pokemon appear in the Ilex Forest, but because I need Headbutt to get them. So after helping this kid retrieve his boss's Farfetch'd and getting the HM for Cut, which I teach to this random Oddish that I found, I give Beryl Headbutt and go back to Azalea Town. The first Pokemon that I want to add to the team is a Heracross. It's not only got a very pretty shiny, but its fighting type will help a lot with the upcoming battles. So I start banging my head against the trees and almost immediately find the shiny Heracross I'm looking for. His name is Amethyst. The second Pokemon I want to add to the team is an Aipom. Ambipom is my favorite Pokemon, and its shiny is pink, which is my favorite color. But the hunt for my new Aipom was my least favorite shiny hunt. I found 3 shiny Aipoms in the trees, which are quite rare to find, but I accidentally knocked out the first one and ran out of Pokeballs while I was trying to catch the second one. But the third time's the charm, and I was able to catch Spinel, the shiny Aipom. With my 2 new teammates on the squad, I blaze a trail through Ilex Forest and help this kimono girl find the exit. After that, I found myself in Goldenrod City where the 3rd gym lies. The gym is currently closed because Whitney is at the radio tower, but she won't leave because she wants to get her hands on a radio card. A quiz, you say? Let me take a crack at it. Yes, yes, no, yes, no. Whitney, that was the easiest quiz ever. How did you not ace it immediately? With the radio card now in my Pokegear and Whitney now at her gym, Amethyst and I get ready to make her pay for all the pain she's caused to Pokemon fans around the world. The battle starts and Amethyst is able to OHKO Whitney's lead Clefairy with a super effective Brick Break, which feels wrong, but Clefairy isn't a fairy type quite yet, so it tracks. Next up is the dreaded Miltank. I expected to easily take this out with another Brick Break, but somehow it outspeeds Amethyst and hits him with an Attract. Great, now my only Pokemon good against normal types is immobilized by Love. This is exactly why no one likes Whitney! Luckily, on the next turn, Amethyst is able to resist his infatuation and doesn't flinch to a stomp, so he can hit the Miltank with a Brick Break, but it doesn't quite KO. He goes for a Horn Attack on the turn after, but Whitney potions and the cow continues to live. The battle gets a little tight after 2 more stomps leave Amethyst at low HP, but he's able to break through the Attract one more time to bring down the Miltank with a final Brick Break, winning the battle. Yes, Whitney, cry. Every tear makes my victory that much sweeter. Now that I have the 3rd badge, I can grab the squirt bottle from a neighboring florist and use it to water this tree, which gets really angry and attacks me. I respond to this attack by watering it again with Beryl, which makes it die. After clearing the way to Ecruteak City, I meet Bill at the Pokemon Center, then follow him all the way back to his house and pester him until he gives me my next Pokemon. Eevee not only has an excellent shiny, but it also gives me access to the first 5 Eeveelutions. I already know which evolution I want, so after finishing my shiny hunt on the first try, I take Emerald to get an obscene number of haircuts and wait until morning so I can evolve him into an Espeon. Now that I have a solid psychic type on the team, I can go back to Ecruteak to get a few things done. First, I head into this theater only to find that a Team Rocket Grunt has stolen the stage from yet another kimono girl. Do you really have nothing better to do? Your dance moves aren't even that good. After quickly taking the grunt down a peg, I acquire the HM for Surf, grab the TM for Shadowclaw, and make my way over to the Burn Tower where I find the gym leader and my rival. This rival battle isn't as interesting as the last one. Each of my Pokemon takes out one of his in 1 or 2 hits. But what is interesting is releasing the legendary beasts into the wild and going to the ghost gym to fight Morty. So let's talk about that instead. I came into this gym with the greatest plan that I have ever conceived. Sweep the whole thing with Spinel. What, you think it's not gonna go well? You think Spinel can't beat a Gengar? Well, prepare to have your minds blown. The battle starts with Spinel outspeeding and OHKOing both Morty's Ghastly and his Haunter with Shadowclaw. After that, Morty sends in his Gengar, which can't actually do anything to hurt Spinel besides using Priority Sucker Punch. But actually, it can't even do that. Spinel can just negate Sucker Punch by tickling the Gengar over and over again since Tickle isn't actually an attack. So I just spam Tickle until I'm sure that Sucker Punch runs out of power points, thus making Gengar unable to hit my normal type. And now that the ghost is pacified, I can OHKO it with a Shadow Claw and take out the second Haunter the same way I took out the first. And the best part? Spinel didn't take a single hit point of damage. Now that I have the ability to surf outside a battle, I do things a bit out of order and head to Mahogany Town before Olivine City. My main reason for doing this is because I want to catch another shiny Pokemon. Probably the most iconic shiny Pokemon. The only shiny Pokemon in this run with a 100% chance of being shiny. The Red Gyarados in the Lake of Rage. After a fierce battle between him and Opal, I caught the guaranteed shiny and named him Ruby. Now, I already have a water type on the team that I have no intention of replacing, so Ruby is just going to be my HM mule for most of this playthrough. But regardless of what I do with Ruby, the champion of the region, Lance, saw me catch him and was impressed by my skills. He tries to recruit me into helping him infiltrate Team Rocket's hideout in Mahogany Town, and I agree, completely oblivious to how intense this was going to be. Lance? You just hyper beamed a guy. Not a Pokemon. A guy. Sir, are you okay? Nope, he is definitely dead. Aside from me now being an accessory to murder, the infiltration attempt was a rousing success. I skillfully avoided detection, disabled the security system, and interrogated the grunts for the passwords to the main office. And when all was said and done, I met Giovanni himself. Or not, I guess. So that's why you were so easy to defeat. After beating Petrol, his Murkrow decided to betray Team Rocket and help me get into the generator room, but first I had to battle Ariana in a tag battle with Lance and his illegal Dragonite. I can't believe you would hack the game like this, Lance. Shame on you! But with Ariana defeated, Lance and I were free to shut off the electrode-powered generator and drive Team Rocket out of Mahogany Town for good. This allows me to finally challenge the Ice-type gym and gives Opal a chance to evolve into a beautiful pink Ampharos. Now, I usually think of Price as being a pretty easy gym leader since he's an Ice-type specialist, but I didn't level up my Pokemon as much as I should have, and that made this battle much harder. Price starts with Seal and I lead Amethyst. I go for a Brick Break on the first turn, but it doesn't quite KO, meaning Seal can use Icy Wind to lower Amethyst's speed. An Aerial Ace on the next turn takes down the Seal, prompting Price to send in Dugong. Now that an actual Ice type is on the field, Amethyst's Brick Break should do a lot more damage, so after taking an Aurora Beam, he goes for a super effective fighting move, but it still doesn't quite knock out the Dugong. Price is able to heal the damage it took with a Hyper Potion on the next turn while I go for a Horn Attack. After taking another Aurora Beam, Amethyst is able to take down the Dugong, but he's looking a bit rough as the Piloswine comes in. It immediately outspeeds my Heracross and finishes him off with a Blizzard. Things aren't looking great, but I still have Beryl who can take Piloswine into red HP as it sets up Hail and hits back with a Mud Bomb. Sadly, Price has another hyper potion that he uses to heal his ace as Beryl goes for a weak bite. This means that Beryl goes down on the next turn to another Mud Bomb. I'm starting to run out of options here, so I bring in Ruby, who's able to tank a critical hit Blizzard on just 18 HP and fire back with 2 Surfs that KO the Piloswine and win me the battle. Okay, so I'm not underestimating any of the gym leaders anymore. I level up my team to about level 36, since that's the level at which Emerald learned Psybeam, and I evolve both Spinel and Beryl into their final forms. Glorious. Now that I'm good and ready, I head to Olivine City to face the next gym leader, but my rival informs me that Jasmine is at the top of the lighthouse tending to a sick Ampharos. As an avid Ampharos enjoyer myself, I have to help too, so I climb to the top of the lighthouse where Jasmine is helping the sick Pokemon. She tells me to go to Cianwood City because there's a shop there that sells medicine that she needs to cure Amphy, but as soon as I get there, my ADHD kicks in and I get distracted by the fighting type gym. Luckily, Emerald is overleveled and able to knock out Chuck's Primeape and Poliwrath in 1 Psybeam each, so I don't waste too much time claiming my 6th badge. Alright, back on track. I grab the secret potion from the shop and surf back to Olivine to give it to that poor Ampharos, and in a matter of seconds, it returns to its old self. Jasmine was so grateful for my help that she rushed back to her gym to tell all her friends about my heroic journey across the seas. And I followed close behind her since I was itching to win my 7th badge. So after getting praised by all her gym trainers, I challenged Jasmine to a battle. A very easy battle. You see, Amethyst is able to OHKO both of her Magnemites, and as much as Steelix tries to put up a fight, it too goes down to my Heracross's Brick Breaks. Sadly, my victory is short-lived since Professor Elm gives me a call telling me to look into some strange broadcasts that have been airing on the radio. Upon investigating, I find that Team Rocket has seized the entirety of Goldenrod City just to gain access to one building that they need to complete their plans. Boo! You already did this in Kanto! Nobody asked for a sequel! I decided to disguise myself as a Team Rocket grunt to gain access to the radio tower, but my rival just ended up blowing my cover, so I went from sneaking around to fighting my way into the director's office. The director ends up being Petrel in disguise, so I clobber his Pokemon yet again, and he gives me the basement key so I can meet this kimono girl and save the real director. But first I have to battle Please Subscribe. Because blowing my cover wasn't enough, now he needs to fight me too. The battle starts and I expect him to start with Haunter, but he leads with Golbat instead. I have to switch into Opal, who gets hit with a Confuse Ray, but luckily she's able to take down the Golbat with a single discharge. Now his Haunter is on the field, so I swap back into Spinel, who can avoid a Spite and send the Ghost back to the Shadow Realm with a Shadow Claw. Next are his Quilava and Sneasel, which Spinel can handle with a double hit apiece, leaving only his Magneton. I bring in Amethyst on a Spark, and even though it gets the paralysis, Amethyst is able to break through and KO the Magneton with a Brick Break, leaving my rival with no healthy Pokemon and an existential crisis. Anywho, back to the task at hand. I save the real director and he gives me access to the rest of the radio tower. I use that access to get to the top floor while taking out Proton and Ariana along the way. When I make it to the top floor, I meet Archer, the man behind it all. He misses Big Daddy Giovanni and hopes that he might one day return home with the milk he promised. But alas, I have to show him that's never gonna happen. Beryl takes out his Houndour and brings his Coughing down to red HP. Coughing lowers Beryl's accuracy with a smokescreen, and since I don't want to have to deal with that later, I switch into Spinel. She gets poisoned on the switch, but manages to get rid of the gas ball for good. Last but not least is Archer's Houndoom, so I swap back into Beryl and he takes a bit of chip from Firefang. 2 feint attacks and 2 surfs later, and the battle was over. Having lost, Archer officially disbands what's left of Team Rocket, and the director shows me his thanks by gifting me the Rainbow Wing, an item that I will definitely be using later. For now, I can finally progress beyond Mahogany Town, so I make my way through the ice path, grabbing the HM for Waterfall and the Nevermelt Ice as I do. I give them both to Beryl and help one more Kimono girl get free from the ice, after which I level up my team until I'm confident they can take on Claire. Claire is a rather daunting gym leader because her Ace Kingdra's only weakness is Dragon, and I don't have an actual Dragon move on my team. The best I can wish for is neutral damage with Opal and Beryl's Discharge and Ice Fang. So here's hoping that will be enough. Gyarados does some decent damage to Opal as she takes advantage of its 4x weakness to Electric by KOing it with a Discharge. Claire's first Dragonair is up next, so I have Opal paralyze it with Thunder Wave before setting up a light screen for the rest of the team. I switch into Beryl as Dragonair goes for an Aqua Tail and proceed to knock out both it and the second Dragonair with 1 Ice Fang each. Last up is Kingdra. It hits Beryl with a Dragon Pulse that gets softened by the light screen and gives him a chance to bite back with an Ice Fang. Sadly, that was the last turn of light screen, so the next Dragon Pulse hits Beryl down to 28 HP. However, in a crazy turn of events, Beryl's next Ice Fang freezes the Kingdra, giving him some time to whittle down its HP. Just not enough. Claire uses a Hyper Potion and the seahorse thaws out of its icy prison. One Hydro Pump later and Beryl has fainted. Spinel joins the fight and tries tickling the Kingdra to lower its defense, but a single Dragon Pulse burns through most of her health. Luckily, she's faster, and on the next turn, she lands a double hit that's just shy of taking down Claire's ace as a Dragon Pulse takes down Spinel. Emerald is up next, and I try to finish the battle with a priority quick attack, but Claire uses another Hyper Potion. How many Hyper Potions does she have? Emerald hits 2 Psybeams to bring down the Kingdra's health for the 3rd time, but he too falls to its onslaught. My last hope is Amethyst, who is able to tank a Hydro Pump and finally kill this stupid seahorse. Give me the goddamn badge, Claire. What do you mean I have to take a test first? Ugh. Fine. I enter the Dragon's Den and pass a test that's even easier than the one I took at the radio tower. How is Claire not past this? Now that Claire's been humbled, I can claim my badge and leave Blackthorn City because Professor Elm apparently has something for me. Back at his lab, he gives me a Master Ball and tells me the Kimono Girls wish to speak to me in Ekritique City. I immediately make my way over, but along the way I run into this full odds shiny Entei. That's just crazy. I would use the Master Ball I just caught to catch it, but I have my heart set on a different Fire-type legendary. I head inside the Ekritique Theater where the Kimono Girls are waiting for me. They wish to test my skills as a trainer, so after I beat each of their evolutions in a battle, they lead me to the top of the bell tower where they perform a dance to summon the legendary Pokemon Ho-Oh. This is going to be my most difficult shiny hunt yet. Even if I get the shiny on my first try like I do here, Ho-Oh is a legendary Pokemon with a very low catch rate. So I'm going to need to get very lucky if I want to add it to my squad. Nah, I'm just kidding. I use the Master Ball on this giant chicken and name it Topaz. After catching my final team member, I took a photo with my finished squad and made my way through Victory Road. At the very end of it, please subscribe challenges me to one more battle. He starts the battle with Sneasel, who Amethyst is easily able to OHKO with a single Brick Break. Up next is Golbat, which tries to get rid of Amethyst with a quad-effective Air Cutter, but a switch into Opal makes that a non-problem. Golbat goes down to a Discharge, prompting my rival to bring in Haunter. I pivot into Beryl, getting trapped by a Mean Look and cursed before taking it down with a Crunch. Magneton is out fourth and uses Thunder Wave as I bring Amethyst back in. The Paralysis allows the Magneton to get off a Spark, but it doesn't stop me from pummeling it with a close combat. Again trying to take advantage of Amethyst's weaknesses, my rival switches into Kadabra. I respond by swapping Emerald in on a resisted Psybeam and firing back with a super effective Shadow Ball. Last, but certainly not least, is the stolen Typhlosion, which Beryl is able to defeat with 2 Waterfalls. Goodbye, please subscribe. I'll miss the way you reminded everyone to subscribe to the channel. With that out of the way, I make my preparations for the Pokemon League. I grab some TMs from around Johto, stock up on healing items, and level my team up to level 50 so I'm on par with the champion's ace. And now that I'm ready, it's time to take on the Elite Four. Will is relatively easy to deal with. I lead with Opal, scaring his Xatu into swapping out to Jinx as I set up a light screen. I can then switch Emerald in as the Jinx misses a Blizzard and proceed to KO Will's entire team with Shadow Ball. Up next is Koga, so I lead with Amethyst this time since he knows Earthquake. Sadly, Koga's Ariados isn't actually weak to ground, so I take it out with 3 Aerial Aces, only taking a single Poison Jab in return. Koga's next Pokemon is Crobat, so I have no choice but to switch into Emerald as it goes for Wing Attack. I set up Reflect as Crobat sets up 2 double teams, but despite it being at +2 evasion, Emerald is able to shoot it down with a single Psybeam. Forretress is up next, so I bring in Topaz to melt right through its defenses with a Flamethrower. After that is Muck, who tries to continue Crobat's evasion strats, this time using Minimize instead of Double Team. I swap back into Amethyst, who misses his first Earthquake but lands the second, leaving Muck at red HP. On the next turn, Amethyst can KO the Sludge Pile with an Aerial Ace, leaving only Koga's Venomoth. It has Psychic, so I bring Emerald back in to take a resisted hit and finish it off with a Psybeam. Third up is Bruno, and I accidentally forgot to switch Amethyst out of my first party slot, so we're leading with him against Hitmontop. The Hitmontop's only move that my bug and fighting type doesn't resist is Quick Attack, so it just spams that while I take it out with a few Aerial Aces. Hitmonlee is up next, and it tries to take out Amethyst with a Blaze Kick, but I swap to Topaz, who takes the resisted hit and knocks it out with a Fly soon after. Bruno's next Pokemon is Onix, so expecting a Rock Slide, I bring Amethyst back in, but it just goes for Sandstorm, giving me a free switch. On the next turn, I take it out with a close combat, prompting a switch into Hitmonchan. Since I know it's going for Fire Punch, I bring Topaz back in to deal with it the same way that I dealt with the Hitmonlee, leaving only Bruno's Machamp. Machamp goes for a Rock Slide, so I swap into Amethyst again, taking a hefty chunk of damage as I do. On the next turn, I can take the Machamp down to about half HP with an Aerial Ace before Amethyst goes down to a Revenge. A switch into Emerald after that gets the Revenge KO with a Psybeam. My last hurdle before the champion is Karen and her Dark types. And her Vileplume, and her Gengar. You know, they could have just given her a Tyranitar and a Sneasel, and her team would have been so much better. But you know what? It doesn't matter. She starts with Umbreon, and I lead with Amethyst yet again. Brick Break doesn't quite KO the Evolution, giving it a chance to hit Confuse Ray. Sadly, this means that Amethyst will hit himself in Confusion on the next turn, and Karen will be able to heal Umbreon with a full restore. But knowing that Brick Break just isn't able to KO, I pivot into Close Combat, which takes the Umbreon down on the turn after. Murkrow is out next, so I switch into Opal to tank a quad-effective Pluck that would have absolutely destroyed Amethyst. A Thunderbolt on the next turn knocks out the bird and prompts Karen to bring in her Houndoom. It sets up a nasty plot as I bring in Beryl, which is a little intimidating, but it greeds for another nasty plot boost on the next turn, giving my starter a free chance to OHKO with Waterfall. After that, Topaz is able to take down her Vileplume, and Spinel and Emerald work together to get rid of her Gengar. And now that all the members of the Elite Four have been defeated, it's time to take on the champion. It's time to take on Lance. He starts the battle with Gyarados, and even though it's able to outspeed Opal and hit her with a Waterfall, she's able to hold strong and fry it with a quad-effective Thunderbolt. In response, Lance sends out his strongest Dragonite, so I decide to use Thunder Wave to paralyze it. It moves first, hitting Opal with a powerful Outrage that leaves her on just 11 HP, and procs Static. It does make my Thunder Wave a little bit redundant, but it's still pretty lucky, and I love Static. Now that the Dragonite is paralyzed, Opal can outspeed and do some chip damage with Thunderbolt before going down to another Outrage. Opal fainting here means that I get a free switch into Beryl, which is huge since he can KO all three of Lance's Dragonites with one Ice Fang apiece. With the Dragonites down for the count, Lance is forced to bring in Aerodactyl. A super effective Thunder Fang hits Beryl, but he shrugs it off and hits back harder with a Waterfall, knocking out the fossil. Last up is Lance's Charizard, and I try to hit it with a Waterfall, but it's faster than Beryl. It hits him hard with an Air Slash and leaves my starter with low HP, and flinches him. Beryl goes down on the next turn, so I bring in Spinel. She's able to lower the Charizard's defense with a Tickle before getting hit hard with an Air Slash, but her double hit on the next turn isn't quite enough to KO. Spinel goes down too. I bring in Topaz to have a fire-flying showdown, but Lance uses a full restore as I go for Fly. Topaz is just shy of knocking out the Charizard, so I use Fly one more time as Lance heals again, but this time, Charizard goes down. And that's it. That's how I beat the main story of Pokemon HeartGold with only shiny Pokemon. Professor Oak comes to congratulate me on my victory, and I enter into the Pokemon Hall of Fame. Now this is usually where I'd end the video since I'm a little bit pressed for time, but you guys on YouTube overwhelmingly decided that I should go all the way to red. So I guess I've got no choice. I claim the SS ticket from Professor Elm and sail on over to the Kanto region. There isn't exactly a story in Kanto, it's more of a glorified boss rush with the gym leaders, so I leveled up my team to level 70 and just speed ran right through them. Here are the cliff notes. Amethyst swept Surge with Earthquake, Spinel swept Sabrina with Shadow Claw, Topaz swept Erica with Flamethrower, Emerald swept Janine with Psychic, Opal swept most of Misty's team with Thunderbolt but needed some assistance from Beryl when Quagsire hit the field, Amethyst swept Brock with Brick Break, and Beryl swept Blaine with Waterfall. The last gym leader I need to fight before I can climb Mount Silver is Blue, and since he doesn't exactly have a type specialty, his gym battle will be slightly more interesting to talk about than the other Kanto gym leaders. But only slightly. I still OHKO all of his Pokemon, I just need to make intelligent switches while I'm doing it. Blue starts the battle with his Exeggutor, so I lead Topaz and burn it to ash with Flamethrower. Rhydon is up next, so I bring Beryl in on a Stone Edge and take it out with a Waterfall. Blue sends out Machamp next, so I switch into Emerald expecting a Thunder Punch. The Thunder Punch connects, and a Psychic on the next turn brings down the Machamp. Arcanine tries to come in and get the Revenge KO with Flare Blitz, but I swap back into Beryl and take resisted damage. Another Waterfall OHKOs the Arcanine, leaving only Pidgeot and Gyarados, which Opal can take care of with Thunderbolt. Now that I have a grand total of 16 badges, Professor Oak calls me to his lab to give me the HM for Rock Climb as a gift. I will treasure it always. Now that I have everything I need to climb Mount Silver, I level up my team to about level 90, and make my way up to the final challenge of this run. Red begins the battle with his signature level 88 Pikachu. I respond by leading with Amethyst, who is just fast enough to outspeed an Oko with an Earthquake. Charizard is up next, so I give Beryl a chance to redeem himself. He does take 2 Air Slashes before he can fire back with a super effective Waterfall, but this time he takes down the Charizard. Venusaur takes the field next, and since Beryl won't be able to do much to Red's remaining Pokemon, I decide to let him go down so I can safely bring in Emerald. On the next turn, Venusaur goes down to a Psychic, prompting Red to bring in his Snorlax. I bring Amethyst back in to deal some super effective damage, but the Snorlax hits him with a Blizzard that freezes. This isn't good. I try to get Amethyst to break free from the ice, but to no avail, and Snorlax knocks him out a few turns later. After that, I bring in Spinel to tickle the Snorlax as another Blizzard takes her down to a little less than half HP. A double hit on the next turn almost takes out this absolute tank of a Pokemon, but it survives and a Giga Impact KOs Spinel. This, however, is a blessing in disguise. Since Snorlax has to use its next turn to recharge, Red won't be able to heal up, which means that Topaz can swoop in and finish it off with a Flamethrower. Red's last 2 Pokemon are Water type, so I'm prepared to sacrifice Topaz to get a free switch into Opal, but the Blastoise just refuses to go for Hydro Cannon, instead opting for neutral Blizzards. This is fine because it gives Topaz a chance to knock it out with 2 flies, but it's still odd. Last up is Lapras. I pivot into using Flamethrower here, expecting it to do a bit more damage than Fly, but it doesn't do as much as I would have liked, and a Brine is able to take out Topaz. But this ends up working out in my favor since I'm able to safely bring in Opal and finish off the Lapras with one single Thunderbolt. And that is how I beat the entirety of Pokemon HeartGold with only full odds shiny Pokemon. And before I get a flood of comments telling me that none of my shinies were full odds, the shiny odds in this specific version of Emerald were 1 in 1. So technically, all of my shinies were full odds shinies. But regardless of the technicalities, I hope you all enjoyed the video. It was my little way of making fun of all the people I know who spend hours of their lives hunting for digital creatures with slightly different colorations. That being said, it's been a little bit since I've spent hours creating fake Pokemon for my very own region, so I'm gonna get back to that. Bye!